Behind me is a very special car, and what makes it so special? It's 90 years old. This is a 1932 Peugeot 201. There's a whole bunch of other things that make it special, and we'll talk about that as we go along. But today we're here to find out, will it start? Darren, come help me! Darren, come help me quickly! Nothing. It's not stuck. The car just is moving. There we go. Before we get into the mechanicals of this car, let me talk you through one or two other things that make it quite special. First, this was one of the very first cars to come out with independent front suspension, revolutionary at the time. The second thing that makes this particular model quite special is actually found at the front of the vehicle. Follow me. The other thing that makes this car so special is found right here in front. This number, 201. This is the first time that Peugeot would use this naming convention, and it's stuck. In fact, it stuck so hard that Porsche in the 60s, 70s wanted to launch their 901. Peugeot got involved and wouldn't allow them to name it 901. It's odd though, Ferrari have the 308 that was launched later, so I'm not sure what happened there. But that aside, let me show you around this particular vehicle. Okay, so correction. This car is not from 1932, it's from 1937. And it's fast. It goes 100 k's an hour, the fastest of the production run. What's so interesting is the detail. Instead of rubber, which we would use nowadays, this vehicle is using leather as its seal. Now, I don't know if it was spec to this particular car, but yeah, leather it is. Of course, we've got suicide doors, always very interesting. And then these doors are normal, or I guess as normal as 1937 allows. A very interesting door mechanism. The body is also in really good condition. I mean, really good condition. Solid all over the place. And so it bodes well for the future of this car. Let's see if we can get into the boot here. This doesn't feel, that looks like it's not original, but really good nonetheless. Here we've got some paneling. Door cards, excellent. And of course, 1937, 90 years old almost. It means there's a little bit of rust, but it's in actually really good nick. I mean, really good nick. That can be fixed quite easily. Oh, and look at those box springs. Okay, well, let's see what we see inside. By the way, did I mention that this car is for sale? Fahad is selling it, so there'll be a link in the description to a Facebook marketplace listing. But anyway, let's move on. Immediately I see that there's a new headliner here, so I would say that whoever owned this car before Fahad was trying to go through a process of some kind of restoration, and you can see it here as well on the paneling, a little bit of stapling that's going on. That's interesting. There's a little bit of a wood frame here. Yeah, underneath the steel, there's a little bit of wood framing. The seats are in really good nick. I mean, they just feel like they should be. There's that box spring feel, which is actually really nice. It can be really comfortable on long journeys. But overall, I would say that this car is just a few days away from being in actually really, really good shape. It's got a really solid body and it's looking good. But let's take a look at the console and the steering wheel here quick. This is probably the part of the car that I absolutely love the most, when you get to see these old dials and the way that they work. We've also got a box full of parts here, which we're going to go through in just a moment to see if there's something that we need. There is some bits and pieces that are definitely needed, so we'll do that in just a bit. But, let me put this out here. Just look at the shifter, it's so much fun actually. We've got this handbrake, which is full on old school stuff. I mean, just look at this place. It's beautiful. I mean, it's such a nice place to actually be. It's classic old steering wheel. Oh yes, of course. And then windscreen wipers. looks like that needs quite a lot of work to be able to get those done, and the windscreen wipers aren't in great shape at all. Yeah, so I mean, it's so interesting to be inside of this kind of time capsule, and I absolutely love it. Let me take you back outside because there is something that may get in our way out here. But before we do that, I put the box down here and we've got a whole bunch of parts. So let's check this out. Okay, an air filter. What is this? Oh, we've got an oil pressure gauge. I was wondering about oil pressure. I've got some more of this leather lining. And see, look at this window winder. Classic, absolutely fantastic. What's this? Oh, we have our ignition. Good. A couple of light bulbs. Yeah, so I think we've got a few things here that are going to be able to help us, especially this, Peugeot. But just behind this box is this tire. It's in really bad shape, not great at all. We do have a can of that tire repair, so we're going to see what that will do for it. It's probably got a tube inside, so I'm not sure exactly how it's going to come together. But if we can get this inflated, that's going to allow us to roll the car around. And the reason rolling is important is because the clutch, there's maybe something wrong with the clutch. And so we may need a little bit of forward momentum and force to break something free. That'll be essential. Okay. Now it's time to get into the engine. She was produced between 1929 and 1937 with precisely 142,309 units produced. This is one of them. Incredible, 90 years later. The engine displacement was roughly 1 litre at the beginning of the production run, peaking at 1.4 near its end. They're incredibly basic units, especially when we compare them to modern standards that we have today. But they are also so very well built, beautifully built, in fact. If we begin to take a look around this particular engine bay, we have got a really basic carburetor here. It's going to be old. I wonder about some seals. Oh, but we've got something broken here. Then we have our steering rack. Oh, this is quite an interesting design. It's going to be interesting to try and figure out how that actually works. Our fuel line is disconnected. We come up here, we've got our distributor. Looks like it's connected quite nicely. This is going to be a bit of a problem. Then we've got our fan, direct drive, no clutch, our generator, our starter is no doubt on the other side. The interesting thing about the timing here is that it's 2 gears that work together. So we won't have to worry about belts breaking, but sometimes they use nylon gears, and so those can eventually wear out and break. I don't know what we're going to find if we take that cover off. But without any further delay, let's actually get into this engine and see if it will in fact start. So the first thing we need to do is figure out whether this engine actually turns. Now fortunately, because of the age of the vehicle, there's something quite special that we can do instead of any other technique. Let me quickly grab something. Yes, we can hand crank it. So I've never hand cranked anything before, so it'll be a first. But there isn't really all that much to it, so let's see how this goes. The car just is moving. Okay, well, the good news, it's not entirely stuck. The bad news, it seems to be stuck in gear. It's moving all over the place. Darn it. So I think the first thing we need to do, and I'm going to need your help, Darren, is we're going to try and figure out whether it's the gearbox or the clutch. So if you wouldn't mind, Darren, come inside and just push down on the clutch as hard as you can. We're going to look for play here. I hope it's going to work. Just up and down, please. In and out, in and out. Okay, we've definitely got movement. Yeah, very direct, very loud. Darn it. Okay, so that's really good. Now if you would just push it all the way in. Okay, that's perfect. Let me see if I crank it now, what happens. Let's see what this does. Oh, there we go, it's working. It's tough, but it's working. Tough means we've probably got good compression, but that also tells us that it is the gearbox and not the clutch. And so that's really good news. Darren, thank you. All right, if we have to start this car with the clutch all the way in, so be it. At least now we know that the engine isn't stuck. I'm going to do a few more rotations off camera and also check the oil, and then we're going to move on to the ignition system. Wow, this oil actually looks brand new. Oh, I've got something in my nose. Oh wow, it's brand new. Smells like fuel, but brand new. And well over the halfway mark, which confirms our suspicions that we had when we were in the car that some restoration must be taking place. I guess they gave it some new oil and then never started it. Probably similar to the process that we're undergoing here, trying to get it to start. Next up, we're going to come here to the distributor, and it's a little bit of finicky work, so I'm going to take my gloves off for this. Okay, so let's see how this works. Okay, there's this sharp little bit. Oh, okay, so it actually pierces into the core, and that's how they get it to function. So this one can technically go back in there. Okay, let's get this stuff out of the way. Yeah, that's pretty dirty, pretty nasty. But it'll do, I'm sure. Okay, it's a little bit dirty, but oh, a little bit of DIY work that has happened here, but I'm pretty sure it still works fine. And then we check our points. Now, there's no power to the car, so I can definitely do this if anyone was wondering why I'm touching it with my hands. It's dirty as anything in here, very grimy, so it will need a good clean. But that's probably because these older distributors needed to have some oiling done to them in order to function really well. So we've looked at our distributor, we're okay I think here. Let's now move on to our spark plugs to see what they look like, which will also give us a view into the cylinders. Although there is a spark plug socket available, it's a little bit small, so we're going to do this instead, and very gently, just see if we can... Oh, there it is, it's moving. What I'd really be concerned with is if that inner ring and the top of the spark plug was rusted, but all of that is just really dirt that we're seeing here, so I think we're in a good place. It's just really fouled, badly fouled. All right, let's put a little bit of lubrication down these cylinders. This is two-stroke. So when starting an engine that hasn't been run for a long time, the absolute best thing to do is to add some of this, just to help lubricate the cylinders a little bit. I'm seeing what looks like a bit of a rusty valve. That one's closed. That looks closed. Oh, that one looks open. Well, it is a flathead, so inspecting it this way, I can see the valves. Some of them are seated, some of them are lifted, naturally of course, which is a good sign I think. I can't see into the cylinders, I don't have a bore scope with me, but it doesn't look like it's in too bad a shape. So we're going to give it a go and see what happens. But first we need to get over to the starter, and then we need to get some energy, some electricity flowing through the system. And the wiring doesn't look great, so I'll show you in just a second. I don't know what's going on here. We're going to have to do some work, and I tell you what, there's one part of a car that I don't like or don't enjoy, it's the wiring. At least it's a simple engine, so we'll figure it out, but wiring is not my favorite part of doing all this. out of the way. Some wiring here. Here we go. It's our ground. Come on. Our ground and our power. At least now we know what's what. Yes, it's going to flipping drive me nuts. Okay. Yeah, that's the cable. That's definitely power to our starter. So I don't know what's happening here with this connection. This is an engine mount with a ground. We've got our positive for our coil. Ground there. We've got this. I'm not sure what that is. We've got this, which comes. Oh, great. Yeah! Darren, come help me! Darren, come help me quickly! Darren, come help me quickly! Thank you. Crap, it was heavy. Yes, yeah, I was just totally off balance. Is this on camera? Yeah. Oh, that was sore.
Weak.
We'll cut that off. We're going to cut that. Okay, well, it looks like we have our work cut out for us. And by work cut out for us, I mean I think we're going to have to rewire parts of this car. Wiring isn't the funnest thing to do, but if we break it down into its smaller components, suddenly it becomes or feels more manageable. So really there are 4 parts to a wiring system. We have our accessory circuit, so that's lights, the indicators, other lights inside the car and so on. We then have our charging circuit, so that's an alternator, or in this case a small generator. We have our ignition circuit, so essentially what gives spark, and then we have our starter circuit. In this particular case, we are going to be looking very, very carefully at our starter circuit and our ignition circuit. And at the center of this universe is this little unit here. And of course, you know what this is. We put the key in and we turn it and the engine goes, the car starts. So if we look on the back here, we are going to see a number of different posts. These are very important because it really tells us how all these different circuits come together. The first one that we have here is the battery post, and this is a direct connection to the positive terminal on the battery. The important thing about this post is that the negative terminal is our ground terminal, and the entire car is a ground. That's why ground points are so important. With the battery terminal coming here, the positive coming here, when we turn the key into a correct position, into one of the other posts, essentially the ignition post, what we're going to do is we're going to be closing that circuit. And so if there is a closed circuit, then we get a running car. If we spin it around, we'll get to our ignition terminal. Now the ignition terminal is essentially the on switch. It's what's allowing electricity to flow through this engine and essentially give us spark. So that's our ignition post, that's the importance of it. It's the on switch. If we come here to the top, we'll see ST, the starter post. Now the starter post is essentially a temporary position. It's a little bit of a nudge of electricity through into the solenoid, which then activates the starter. It's different to the ignition because the ignition is a permanent position, whereas the starter, of course, is a temporary position. And then finally, if we come here and we look down there, you'll see stamped there's ACC. This is our accessory post. This is the circuit that we're probably not going to spend too much time on today unless we've got some time. So the two that we are going to spend time on are our starter and ignition. And so starter is up first. I'm hoping that this is a negative ground car because I can't find any information about that stuff online. Because the car's so old and the forums are so badly populated. So the starter circuit in this car is important, but it also isn't that important. Ignition is more important than starter, and the reason I say that is because we can potentially hand crank it. But what goes into a starter circuit? So of course we have our ignition switch, sure, but then we have also our battery. our battery leads into a starter solenoid. Now, the reason I'm even considering hand cranking as an option is because I think someone's been in here before. Look, this thing's not in such good shape. So we've got our starter solenoid, battery to starter solenoid to starter, and then our ignition comes to this post over here. Then when we turn the key, this is energized, and essentially these two posts are connected. That gives the starter its power. So we're going to have to see if we can hook all of this up and then see if we give it some power, what actually happens. Okay, so we've got power here. We've got this connected here, which is, again, a bit of a jerry-rig. But what we're going to now do is close the circuit with a screwdriver. There should be sparks in action here if the solenoid works, and yeah, nothing. No sparks, no nothing. Okay, so we're going to get rid of the solenoid. I've hooked up the main power cable to the starter. I'm going to hook it up here to the post and then just see what happens. Okay, we've definitely got life. You can hear it. There's draw. Ah, there it is. Starter's going. Oh, let me take it out. Clearly the Bindex is not coming out, that little pinion piece, so we're going to have to check that out, but we've got some life. There it is. It's exciting. At least we don't have to try and hand crank it. With the starter spinning, it's really exciting because we haven't seen any kind of life out of this engine to this point. The problem is the Bindex is not engaging, and so I'm not 100% sure that I want to deal with the starter at this point. We're going to have to pull it and see what's going on. So I'm going to ignore it for now, and the next steps are going to be to try and see if we can hook up this system and get a constant spark as we get rotation. The first thing that we can test, I think, is our coil. Nice and easy. What we simply do is put this one here. We take our lead and then we apply some power. Excellent, our coil is working well. That's a relief. Just a reminder that these old distributors needed oiling, and so when we take things like a brake cleaner, you can't throw it down there. Throw it into something and then wipe it down because we need it to function really well. Anyway, let's move on to this cap here very quickly. See if we can clean these. Okay. Crimp it down. Now we do our battery wire. All right, we've got our ignition circuit set up. I'm going to turn this onto the on position. Okay, there would be our starter if we had it. So it's on at the moment. So technically what I should be able to do is come here to these points and, yep, oh yes, we have got an ignition circuit. So we've got spark, and now the next issue that we have to deal with is getting that spark to our different spark plugs. This is our distributor cap. And if you look closely, you can see that it's quite a strange design in that what we have instead of a plug is we have to take our wire, here's the old wires, and they are forced down into a channel onto this sharp spike here. It pierces the core, but one of the things that needs to happen in order for this to function correctly is the necessary pressure to hold this in place. Now, this is where the challenge really comes in. This is the cap that is for the cap. If we place it on top here, you'll see that it needs to make really, really good contact in order to be able to put down that pressure. And if you look a little bit closer, you'll see that this one's broken. right where the screw needs to be. And so as a result of that, we can't put the necessary force down in order to keep these ends into this. So we're going to do a little bit of interesting jerry rigging with another set of plugs, and we may not need that cap at all, where we're going to try and make contact in a bit of a different way, and then we're going to see if we can get the spark to move around. So this is an old set of leads, and what we're going to be doing with them is we're going to be harvesting off the old cables this top connector, because this one has corroded so much that it got stuck in the distributor that this came from, the distributor cap. So hopefully they're still good and they're going to work. So first what we have to do is we use a couple of screwdrivers to force our way into this little gap here, and then we'll just twist, and that should open it up. And there we have it, just about, there it is, out. Clean contact is good contact, right? That looks much better. Start manipulating it closed. It's a combination of kind of around and down, because we need that, we need really good contact here. Look at that. Look at that fit. And this one fits so well, it's stuck. Which is perfect in my book. This is looking really good. I'm actually much more confident than I was just a couple of minutes ago. I mean, take a look there, and they're almost forced in. They're pretty stable. Now I'm just going to see if we can insulate that a little bit there, and then we'll put the cap on and see how it goes. Well, that worked out really well. So let's get this thing back on here. So we have to feed this through here. Okay, nice. It's a good fit. Let's take out the old, in with the not so old. All right, great. So from here, what we're going to now do is test if there is spark going to each of our cylinders, each of our spark plugs. So we'll pull it out, push this in, and then just test it right over here for each of them, or in an appropriate spot. And now the fun begins, where we don't have a starter. So what we have to potentially now do is get it to crank. But remember, we've got an issue with our clutch, and so we need someone in there pushing the clutch in while Darren, our very strong cameraman, cranks. Change of plans. Darren's got stronger legs, so I'll crank. He's going to push down that clutch. Tell me when. Okay. Okay. Yep. There we go. Okay, so spark verified, which is a really, really good thing. Now we need to figure out whether or not we can get that starter going, and then also now how to get fuel into this engine. But we're in a really great place. Do a nice healthy mix. All right, so what's going to happen is that we are going to have a lot of smoke coming out of the back of the engine. We mustn't worry about this. It's the two-stroke burning off. It means that the two-stroke is actually doing its job. It's in the cylinders. We're going to see if we can gravity feed this like a drip. Okay, we can hear it here. There, you see that? So we're going to get leaks, but at least now we know there's fuel there. I need my gloves. At least the right hand. Come on, baby. Nothing.
It's
What do you mean?
Like a yeah.
Oh, could you hear something? It's usually there's a pop. There's it's actual fuel igniting. I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, it didn't make it. It didn't make it that far.
We've seen that there is spark. It then becomes about timing and fuel delivery. So I'm wondering what is going on here. And sometimes you can also just lose spark, which is another whole ball game altogether. I mean, with this distributor the way that it is, I mean, who knows whether we still have spark. So let me quickly just do that. Hang on for just 2 seconds. Yeah, still spark. Tiny, tiny, tiny amount. It's there. It's not strong, but it's there. And the starter doesn't work either. It's just too weak. It's too weak to spin hard enough to get that Bindex to engage. When we manually engage the Bindex, then it doesn't have enough force either in there or perhaps even the battery to get it to actually crank. With the clutch in, no, I'm saying with the clutch in, it seems like it's a tougher ask. Let go. Yeah, with the clutch out, it spins. Okay, it's engaging really nicely now. How do we get it to continue to rotate? Oh. Okay, here we go. Oh, there we go. Let's help it. I mean, I don't want to help it too much because I'm going to destroy my hand. Okay, that's not helping anymore. So it's technically a 6-volt system, but there's a 12-volt coil here. So I'm wondering what happens if we put a 12-volt battery in here with a little bit more oomph. Maybe that's an idea. In fact, I'm quite excited for this idea. Let's get this swapped out. Okay. There's our ground, there's our positive, and I'm going to tighten that up and then we are ready to go. Okay, let's get some more fuel down here. That may be the only way we get it to fire off and start pulling fuel, because it's not a drop, you know, it's not from above, it's from the side, and so it may not be pulling the fuel in. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's an engine that can possibly start, I think. Okay, what do you think? You have to mix up more fuel. No, but it's geared in such a way that it's not going to rotate with the engine. It's going to make a loud noise. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Nice and deep. Okay. In 3, 2, 1. Don't. Okay. Hold on. The Bindex isn't coming out. So let me just. Thought that was a little bit easier, surely.
It did. It actually went there.
Okay, here we go. Bud, Darren, you ready? Okay, we're good. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Our Bindex has stopped. So we've not heard a puff, there's nothing. We've got nothing so far. But we've got spark, which is great. We just need you to go faster.
Faster?
It's not me speaking, that's just science speaking. It's not.
I'll put on both gloves.
Yeah, good idea.
Now it's a problem.
2 seconds. Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, Darren. What was that?
Something.
What was that loud bang?
That was a backfire.
Was that? It wasn't you.
That wasn't me.
That was
a backfire.
That was a.
backfire.
That was a backfire.
That's called life.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done, guys.
Definitely.
No, well done. I mean, seriously.
It's smoking now.
Is it smoking?
Yeah, there's a bit of smoke there.
Yeah, in here. But a smoke came up here.
Okay, let's just make sure it wasn't anything here.
That's definitely from the carburetor.
Yeah, there was a backfire.
Fantastic. Well, look, well done, Darren. Okay, let's try it again.
It's smoking still. I see it's smoking now a lot.
Where's it smoking from? As long as it's not.
Not fire.
Yeah. We've got our.
We got our stuff.
We've got our stuff here. Yeah, yeah.
It's smoking from this over here.
From the intake.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, that's good. This is
It's just a backfire.
okay. So that means we just needed fuel. So with you on the accelerator a little bit.
I can control the accelerator.
Yeah, as long as you're quick on the brake if we start moving.
No. If something goes, I'll just.
Okay, let's try again. Okay, thanks, Darren. Thank you. Okay, so we have stopped arcing. Now we just need to figure out how to get it to crank just the way that Darren got it cranking. The start is engaging, but there's no real oomph there. Something's going on here by the flywheel. I'm not sure what it is. It's preventing us from really moving things the way that it needs to in order to build up the compression to be able to start. So we're going to have to figure that out. Otherwise, Darren is probably going to have to crank start this thing. Thanks, Darren. Glad we did all that cleaning beforehand. 3, 2, 1, and... Fire! Come on! Okay, in 3, 2, 1, and crank. Yes! Yes! Okay, stop, we'll stop. Okay, we're getting frustrated, we're getting tired, and that's because we are running into issues trying to crank this fast enough to actually get something out of it. So we're going to see if we can quickly work on this clutch issue. We're going to see if we can inflate this using one of these cans, and then we're going to try and rock the clutch free. Because whether it's in gear or out of gear, when that clutch is out, it's stuck, it's not moving. So let's see what happens when we use this can of emergency repair. I've heard that sound before on the
Tire video.
Yeah, so I'm not so keen on having this thing blow up in my face. Let's just see. It says to use the whole thing, but let's just spin this in. Oh. Okay, well, I'm really impressed with this stuff. It's actually worked like a bomb. I recommend it over what I did in that tire repair video for my Porsche. Yeah, this is fantastic. It's so nice that we don't, that we don't have to rely on
The clutch.
yeah. Okay, let's go, Darren. 3, 2, 1, and nice. Okay, let's try again. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're getting there.
It hurts every time.
Sorry. Thanks for taking for the team. Okay, she's leaking nicely down there. That means we've got fuel. So accelerator now, please.
On accelerator, yes.
And maybe brake, just in
Yeah,
case.
and brakes.
Okay, in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Accelerator. Okay, one more time. 3, 2, 1. We have to give Darren a break, and we also have to figure out timing and fuel delivery because we've got lots of fuel. It's dripping, we know that, and okay. So if we have our firing order right now, we need to get our timing correct. Looks like these have quite large teeth in order to do that. It's already loose there. Okay. All right, so now that's nice and tight. No, stop. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay. I think we're going to have to call it a day just because of the time and the light. But at least we got it to pop. It took us the whole day.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay, well, that was really exciting, but we are running out of light. We're running out of time. Darren's running out of muscle. And so we're going to have to call it a day. I'm going to take this carb off and give it a good service. Then we're going to come back, put it on, and get this car going. We'll see you in the next video.